Good evening. This is the Dominance Academy. I'm your host, Mr. Justin. Hope you've had a good day. I know I have. Yep. Got into an interesting online discussion with another Dom. Not really a discussion, but just, a couple back and forths in his comment section. And it showed him, I think he was in Las Vegas with his wife, who is an owned submissive. And in the middle of all these people, he's got the camera and she kind of like rushes up to him and kneels to him in public. And at first I was like, oh, that's cool, and then I was thinking, no, wait a second. Did they get the consent from every person in the vicinity to indulge in their dynamic? Because viewing is engaging, right? It's a form of engagement, is watching. And he's like, yeah, I get that, but we can't live in shame, and you're kind of like upholding a stigma and all this shit. And I'm like, come on. At the end, not everyone in the kink community is walking around with shame, and you can certainly process shame without taking it to public. Tons of people process shame privately. It's not about that. And I said, and still, even at the end of the day, you are non-consensually exhibiting your dynamic to other people. And then I was like, well, and then where's the line drawn if we take your way of looking at it? What if me going to a restaurant with my slave with a shock collar around her neck and using extremely harsh, degrading language in the middle of a restaurant, and to me, in my world, let's say that's incredibly tame. That's like an average Tuesday afternoon for me, without even thinking about it. How far does it go? And also you got to consider culture and the environments that you're in, because if you go to East Asia, Southeast Asia, even public forms of affection, it's just kissing on the street is seen as rude. So I think it's part of being responsible to consider the environments that you're in. And while you may be shameless, while you may be very comfortable, it doesn't mean that you have to push it on people's eyes. I don't think that's fair. This is one of my dogs. I had him turned into a mug. Yeah, that's Phoenix. He was a rescue from Bali. And there was an acquaintance over there, and I was like, holy shit, that dog's really cute. So we got him over here. He was really messed up though. Very malnourished, broken hip. But man, in other places of the world, you'd be surprised just how fucking cheap everything is. It was nothing to get him fixed up, and to what the work that he had done and the rehabilitation would have been many, many thousands of dollars here in the States. It's crazy. Over there, it was equivalent of I don't know, spending a few nights in an expensive hotel. But anyways, so tonight we're going to be talking about modern women and submission, because I'm around various spaces, and I hear this. I see it online. I hear it on Clubhouse. I hear it on podcasts and things like that. Where guys are talking, and guys are like, man, she just she won't, they won't submit, or they gotta submit. Women must submit. And it's not really how it works. And I don't even know if it could work that way, if I would really even want it to. That's almost like saying, okay, I want to be like a master painter. So all I got to do is just say I'm a master painter, and then boom, I am. Right? Like it doesn't make any sense to me where someone could do that. I want to be like master MotoGP motorcyclist just because I want to say that I am, and therefore I am. Like that doesn't, like, that takes out the joy of the challenge of becoming, you know. And I get it, like that's not really how they're looking at it, but you know, whatever. You know, so we're going to talk about that and a little bit about the modern man, and you know, really like what's going on here. And you know, people, I hear guys say, well, shit, you know, things used to be better back in the old days, you know, when women didn't have rights and things like that. And you know, when looking at stuff like that, you got to consider the context, you know, the context of the culture of that time. And you know, it was more so like around survival and stuff like that. Like, you know, like there was no other choice for a lot of women. And perhaps, you know, guys are, you know, wishing it was like that. But the reality is that it's not the way it is today. You know, girls don't need guys in the same way for survival. And yes, we built the infrastructure and things like that, but they're not individually looking to men for survival a lot of times. And there's a bit of pride. There's a bit of pride to that involved in that. What's up, Wicked? What's up, Lou from the 041? Good to see you, fellas. So really, you know, girls they're kind of like, you know, all prided up. They're all hopped up on you know, feeling their independence and shit. And a lot of guys are waiting for their revenge fantasy to come true. About these ladies getting, you know, alone with a bunch of cats. But, you know, I recently saw a clip. It was this woman, and she took like a bunch of these clips of these older women in their like late 30s or early 40s, and just kind of did like a montage of all these ladies being like, holy shit, I was fed a lie. I went with what was out there as far as like, you know, female empowerment and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm alone. Like I should have married that guy that I met in college or something like that. Like there was like a lot of regret in these clips of all these women. And you know, I feel like that's basically all that guys have left. They're just waiting for that time of painful reconciliation of you know, women coming to terms with the reality that they have chosen. And you know, and they're not like completely to blame because there's social conditioning involved, right? Just as guys, like, you know, you guys who have been afflicted with nice guy syndrome and shit like that, is that your choice, right, to become a simp? No, a lot of times it wasn't. A lot of times it had to do with like years and layers of social conditioning to make you this way. So, you know, in the same way, like, can you blame girls for their brains being massaged into thinking and perceiving and believing certain things? Not entirely, you know. But you know, it is what it is, and this is the problems that we have right now. And a lot of countries are going under. You know, France, I think, is done. Japan is done. I think it was North Korea is done. Italy is done. Done meaning that there's no chance of population replenishment. There's no chance. Like literally, like say, like if you look at Japan or any of these countries, if every physically capable female, like any female who could get pregnant, okay, and we're gonna put aside morals, all right, because we don't want to see like 13-year-old girls out here being pregnant, but if their body could get pregnant, let's just imagine all bodies that could get pregnant, regardless of age, got pregnant today. It wouldn't birth enough children to maintain the infrastructure of these countries. There wouldn't be enough people. That's how far down the slope that the population has gotten, because people are marrying less, they're having less families, they're making less children, and that's gone on for so long that there's no way that these countries can stand on their own. And some systems can and will be maintained by AI, but what about construction? Like, we're really far behind in terms of robotics, and like, who's gonna fix roads? Who's gonna get up on power lines and fix that shit? You know what I mean? Plumbing, like just basic stuff, And so I mean, if robotics was as fluent the way like language learning models are, and AI and quantum computing, then I think we'd be okay. But that's not the case. That's not happening. So we are in the United States, like, a country needs 2.1 children per female in order to maintain the infrastructure of a society. And right now, I think the U.S. is hovering around like 1.6, 1.7. So if it drops below lower than that, then we're screwed. I mean, we have a lot of immigrants here, so that people coming in legally and illegally, so that helps, but it can't sustain, right? It slows the bleeding, but it can't sustain it. So, yeah, what a downer. But hey, no empire has lasted forever, right? Everybody thought in the middle of the height of the Roman Empire, they probably thought it was going to last forever, but it didn't. English Empire, the Ottomans, like all of them, they probably thought like, yeah, this is it. And everything falls, everything crumbles, everything has an ebb and a flow, an in and an out, yin and yang. And so we're facing like unprecedented times, and I'm curious how it will go. Yes, what's up, Eugene? Good to see you, man. So, but today we're not going to talk about the world falling apart. We're going to talk about modern women, so that's what brought me to that. So like, modern women, they're not reliant on men as individuals, because we have the systems developed, right, formed by men. So now it's like, well, I want to choose who I'm with. That's kind of their mentality, and they're not finding a lot of guys who are viable for that, despite what the guys think of themselves. So like, hey, I'm a decent dude, I'm gainfully employed, I'm not fat, I'm not stupid, I'm not like ugly, I'll treat you well. Why am I invisible to you? And like, that's kind of like the basic mentality. Why are you still going after the 3% that you can't get? And the girls are squeezing their legs together, rubbing their pussies and saying, I can't help myself. But that's just nature. So that's just nature. I'm joking. They're not all like that. Oh, and in other news, Red Pill is dying. Yay! So long to the fucking cult. Yeah, Red Pill is totally dying. Losing steam. People aren't making money off of it anymore. It was completely infested by incels, like angry weirdo guys, and it totally killed it. So there's going to be another movement, But there was like MGTOW, there was one for black guys like SYSBM, there was, well, obviously the Red Pill, and all these, they have their phases, Red Pill lasted for a while, many years, and now that's crumbling and falling away. So there's gonna be like a new thing. You know what I mean? And maybe it's something to do with power dynamics because it's becoming more and more mainstream. All right, so let's get into it. Okay, so submission has turned into a buzzword. Half the people online are cosplaying it, and the other half are terrified of it, and almost nobody actually understands what the hell it is. So let's clear some of the fog. When a woman says that she wants to submit, and trust me, I think almost all women actually do, like in their core, she's not saying that she wants a man to bark commands and drag her around like it's a role play scene. She's talking about something much deeper, something emotional, psychological, and erotic. And the core of real submission has nothing to do with kink. It has nothing to do with leather. It doesn't even start in the bedroom. It starts with safety, like emotional, psychological, and energetic safety. Most modern women are starving for a man who gives them that safety without being needy, weak, or defensive. At the same time, they're terrified to admit it because the culture tells them that submission equals weakness. So you have this weird paradox. Women crave the masculine structure, but they've been taught to feel guilty for wanting it. And there's but another layer, okay? Women also struggle to submit because modern men aren't giving them what their instincts actually need. The average man today is emotive, he's reactive, he's indecisive, he's addicted to comfort, constantly second-guessing himself, and chronically disconnected from his own masculine center. And this isn't because men want to be this way, it's because everything around them shapes them into it. Modern men were raised in a cultured soup that punished masculine expression. Boys were told to calm down, sit still, be nice, and never challenge authority. They were basically treated like defective girls. And they grew up with absent fathers, which started as the divorce epidemic that started in the 80s, and it just kept on going. So they were trained to fear being seen as aggressive, demanding, or assertive. They grew up with absent fathers or passive fathers who modeled weakness as normal. They watched men portrayed as idiots in the media and women portrayed as flawless. And the school system taught them that compliance earns rewards, not leadership. So you end up with men who don't trust their own strength, men who don't know how to lead, men who avoid conflict like it's poison, men who crumble when a woman tests them, men who think dominance means acting angry and loud, and men who think masculinity is a costume rather than a structure. Sorry about that. And here's the truth women will never say out loud. A woman can't submit to a man who doesn't feel like a man to her. This is the first point. Submission doesn't appear because she wants to give it. It appears because the man radiates something worth giving it to. And it's not even like a conscious choice. It's a reaction. And just like any other reaction, good or bad, somebody like smells something awful and they retch, like they can't even control it, right? Or you hear a great song and the hair stands up on your forearms. Submission is the same way. Women can't submit to a man who is insecure, no matter how well he hides it. She can't submit to a man who treats dominance like cosplay. She can't submit to a man who doesn't know himself. Why? Because submission is trust, full body trust, the kind of trust where she lets her guards drop, her feminine instincts to come online, and she allows herself to be led. And this brings us to the second point. There's a difference between kink submission and relationship submission. Kink submission is easy. It's a scene. It's a moment. Temporary. Anyone can act dominant for 20 minutes if the lighting is good and both people are horny. Relationship submission is a whole different universe. It's not a role she plays. It's a state she lives in. In kink submission, she allows commands because it's fun. In relationship submission, she follows because she trusts the man while she's sober, emotional, pissed off, tired, stressed, vulnerable. And this is the thing most men miss. Submission isn't something you extract, it's something you evoke. You don't tell her to be submissive. You live in a way that makes her body relax into it automatically. This is why just be dominant advice is useless, because most men aren't anchored enough to pull it off. They're trying to act dominant on top of an ungrounded nervous system. Women feel that instantly and they retract. Women aren't stupid. They can smell instability. They can feel insecurity. They can sense when a man is performing versus being. And that's why you hear so many women say things like, I want to submit, but I can't find a man I trust. Or they'll even say something simpler and say, where are all the men? Where are all the real men? That's what they mean. Translation, they want to surrender, but the men they meet don't feel like they can hold that surrender. Modern culture gives women freedom, independence, and a stronger voice. And that's fine, but freedom doesn't erase feminine instinct. Feminine instinct wants direction. Feminine instinct wants containment. Feminine instinct wants a man who knows what he's doing and where he's going. Which brings us to the next layer. A woman doesn't submit to a man. She submits to a man's clarity. Clarity is one of the most erotic things a man can bring. Know who you are. Know what you stand for. Know what your life is about. Know what you want from her. Know how to communicate it without fear. And last night we talked about communication. When a man carries that clarity, women can feel it. They feel it in your voice, in your decisions, in your presence, and something in them says, I can exhale with him. That exhale is the beginning of submission. Once she exhales into you, the next thing emerges, her desire for polarity. Women don't want 50-50 roommate dynamics. They want to feel the difference between masculine and feminine. They want that spark. They want the tension. They want the dance of leadership and surrender. And this is important. Real submission isn't passive. It's responsive. It responds to the man's presence. It responds to his structure. It responds to the way he holds her emotions, her uncertainty, her storms. And let's talk about those storms. A woman can't submit to a man who collapses when she gets emotional or freezes. She needs to know you can weather her intensity without losing yourself. Because if you can't hold her emotion, she won't trust you to hold her body, her heart, or her surrender. So when men ask, how do I get women to be more submissive? The real question should be, how do I become the kind of man a woman naturally submits to? Submission is the reflection. We talked about this before, that women are mirrors. The man is the source. And that brings us to the last point, which are the 4 stages of surrender. These are universal. They appear across cultures, ages, and personalities. So the first stage is curiosity. She feels your presence. Something in her wakes up. She wants to feel more, and her senses go on alert. Stage 2 is the softening. She starts relaxing around you. She becomes more feminine, more expressive, and open. She's starting to become more liquid. Stage 3, this is where she lets herself fall. She lets you lead. She lets you decide. She lets you direct. Rather, she lets herself be led. She lets herself allow you to make the decisions. She lets herself be directed. And then in stage 4, which is when she becomes a complete liquid, this is the deep one. This is where she gives you her devotion, her obedience, her erotic vulnerability, her emotional truth. This is where she kneels not out of kink, but out of reverence. Like it's no longer this thing that like is performative or because she's horny, because it's cool, right? It's literally because she can't not kneel. And it's not just kneeling from her body, it's kneeling from inside. And most men try to force stage 4 without offering anything from stage 1 through 3. It doesn't work. Submission is layered. It's relational. It's developed. And when it appears, when it genuinely appears, or when it emerges, this is one of the most beautiful expressions of the feminine devotion you will ever experience. And that's the reality. Not fantasies, not the memes, not the TikTok spank me daddy stuff, or the guy holding his hand out and she walks up and puts her throat into his hand. None of that stupid shit, okay? The real thing. And that's really the full crux of what's happening here. The guys will say, you know, the game's changed. They'll say the game's changed out here. And it hasn't, because the feminine core does not change. It doesn't change. Surface things change, cultures change, social patterns change. All this stuff changes over time, across the world. What's seen as fashionable or the in thing of how to behave and how to look, how to show up in society, those always fluctuate. I mean, look how people were in the Americas, like, in the 1930s compared to now. Look at how people were in Italy now, back, and then reflecting on how they were, in like the 1300s, right? Everything on the surface changes, but at the core of men and women, it hasn't changed. Our cores are the same, and they've not changed since we crawled out of caves. Pardon me, just 1 second. There we go. Right. Informing myself that I'm streaming now. So, and the thing is like, guys find it to be problematic because they're dealing with women on the surface. They're not really engaging with women from their core, and I guess they don't know how, and that's fine. Like, you can't fault someone for being ignorant, right? We can't fault ignorance. That's dumb. But that's really what's happening, and they're getting distracted by the things that come out of their mouths. That's why I say to my guys, like, just stop listening to women. Really, there's no point. And you guys get sucked in. You get sucked into the social media bullshit. Like, oh my gosh, did you hear what she said? Why do you fucking care? Why does it matter? Well, it's just these women out here, they're like, and they have like these whole frameworks and criticism and all this bullshit. And it's like, it's not your girl. Why are you treating her as though she is? And if she is, why are you tolerating that bullshit? Why don't you just tell her to stop if she's yours, right? Tell her to button up and suck it up, It's, I don't know what it is. You guys just get sucked into the feminine view, jealous of them, criticizing them, like, oh, they get treated like this. It's like, so are you saying that you want to be treated like a woman? Is that it? You want that equality? You want the double standards to go away? Well, we get rid of the double standards and everybody's treated the same, and then there's no polarity. And then you sit there wondering why women don't want men. Because there's nothing to respond to. There's no polarity anymore. You can't have everything all at once, right? Like, double standards like exist because of polarity. That's just the nature of things. Ah, there she is. Yes. What's up, kitten? Let me just kind of look at some of your questions here, or comments. Wicked, first POA was dying. Yeah, that certainly died. That's pushing up flowers. MGTOW was dying and now red pill. Yep, no more losers whining about women. Oh, no. There will definitely be losers whining about women. Like until the humans are gone from this planet. There will always be the bitter have-nots, you know? And the thing is, like, they've always been here. The difference is that the internet exists. And that put everybody on the same access plane of being able to communicate. And so all these like losers who have been around since like forever, since fucking Victorian times, you know, and prior, like just there's always been guys who like look at other dudes and go, fuck, like why can't I do that? You know, why can't I be like that guy? Why can't I have what he has or whatever, you know? And they would maybe like talk about it with other dudes or maybe not, I don't know. But now with the access to the internet and the having anonymity, because you can just, you know, it's not like your parents named you Wicked Scorpion 91, although that would be fucking awesome. What do you want to name him, honey? Wicked Scorpion, bro. but so everyone can hide behind these anonymous, you know, monikers, right? These identities, and then just say whatever the fuck you want. And people started exposing their truths, right? Because they were given this opportunity, and guys just started puking all over the internet, right? Just puke and diarrhea just everywhere. And it really, I don't know, it really got bad. Destroyed the red pill, destroyed MGTOW, right? Oh yeah, I haven't heard much about the Black Manosphere in a long time too. I think the whole thing has really kind of shifted to like, what is it? Like passport bros, basically. I think they're just, you know, they're just like, fuck it. Like I want to look elsewhere. And I don't blame them, you know. Western women have really, I mean, I'm not saying they're all messed up, but I think like a non-messed up, you know, Western woman is becoming incredibly rare. It's like finding hen's teeth. And so, you know, but here's the thing though, going back to like that core, that instinctive core that women have, no matter the culture, no matter the time, women have a really, well, they've got a bullshit detector. They've got like their instinct can read, okay, I can open to this guy. And you might be thinking, yeah, but how come that instinct never works when she's getting fucked by Chad and like he just like leaves her on the curb, right? Like last night's trash. And that's not the instinct is still there. All right. It's just hoping. It's just hoping that he's going to not be that. And often they're wrong. Okay. Because the fact of the matter is that the bad boy and the nice guy are just two sides of the same coin. They started the same route, then there was some sort of event that happened in their lives, and it split into two directions. Okay, and one's the bad boy, one's the nice guy. Both of those pathways are a means of preserving their emotions, their emotional safety. And so the nice guy preserves it by preventing the boat from rocking. He does everything in his power to keep things emotionally safe and stable. And so he does that through supplication. The bad boy maintains his emotional safety through distance. Now, unfortunately, emotional distancing is something that can become really, I don't know if I can say attractive, but it like kind of like perks the awareness of women. So it is attraction in a certain kind of way. It's not like, I'm saying that it's not perceived as being hot, right? I don't mean that in attraction, but attraction in the way that like a moth is drawn to a light, okay? And because there's something about that. There's something about the man who is not emotionally moved by her that remains still, you know, but he's not still. He's actually retreating, but it comes off as stillness. And so she kind of wants to go in and go towards what he's backing away from. And then, you know, he can kind of, you know, have his way or whatever. But that's not really it. Okay. And they're often like more exciting than a nice guy. And oftentimes, and I get these requests from many a housewife, right? Because the core still wants it when she has her nice husband, and he's like, and she writes me and she says, my husband, I want him to be more dominant. I want him to be less of a nice guy. Like I love the soft side of him. It's great. Like he's just the best guy I've ever come across. I always feel safe with him. But, women also want to feel, dare I say, unsafe. They want the thrill of feeling your masculine power, and sometimes your masculine force. And, like a lot of guys, they're afraid. They're afraid to go into that space mentally, emotionally, verbally, and physically, because they're afraid of, harming her in some way. And so they hold back, and they're really scared of this stuff. So it's both. The girl's, with the bad boy, she's wanting him to become nicer and more caring, and see her and hear her, and he could care less, or he prevents himself from caring more, because that it kind of like fucks up his whole emotional safety paradigm that he's got going on. And the nice guy, he's afraid, because if he's afraid, if he puts on some kind of an edge, it's going to rock the boat. She's not going to like it and leave him. And the funny thing is that if both of those guys were to do the opposite of what they're doing, they would be more enticing to women. That's the irony of it. Yeah. Things are always different than what we expect them to be. So, yeah, what else we got here? Yeah, they are definitely. The modern man, I mean, this has been going on for a long time, actually. Like if you look at, I mentioned like the TV shows and stuff, it's hard to imagine a show where the father was the hero of the family, where he was, treated well. He wasn't the butt of jokes or anything like that. It's funny because like you go back to like looking at like I Love Lucy, right, with Ricky Ricardo, right, and Lucille Ball. Lucy was actually the butt of the jokes. Like she was the bumbling idiot in that show. You guys should watch some episodes of that. And he was always like frustrated with her because she was meaning well, but she was just kind of clumsy. I don't know. I kind of like a clumsy girl. It's cute. Yeah, but the emasculation has been going on, for quite some time, in many institutions, through schooling, the education system, film, television, that's slow chipping away. Thankfully, like I grew up with, very like masculine film heroes. I never looked up to sports people, just not my thing. But I had like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Conan the Barbarian, Rambo. It's all the Sylvester Stallone roles. There was Peter Weller, RoboCop, Predator, like all these like great movies from the 80s, and so there was just these like bigger than life action heroes, and this is kind of like what I looked up to. I was like, yeah, this is badass. And it's like there's still like some badass guys, but it's almost like comical, it's like cosplaying, like the Rock, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to take him seriously. He's got sort of a cartoonishness to him. It doesn't feel as genuine the way, say, like Sylvester Stallone was in his movies. But anyways, yeah, it's been going on for a long time. Might even be some kind of psyop, between that and the population thing that I was talking about earlier, it could be just a means of population control. Yeah, they always worried about what women say, especially the low quality ghetto chicks. I wouldn't know about that. I have no idea about low quality ghetto chicks. But yeah, this is a blue. Exactly. Yep. Basically want a nice guy player. Yes. Yes. I mean, if you look at, so a great example of this, right, is the Beauty and the Beast tale. And I'm going to be making a product specifically tailored to this whole dichotomy. That'll be on my website. And I forget what it's called, The Beast and the Maiden or something like that. Or no, it's called The Monster and the Maiden. That's what it'll be called. And so the Beauty and the Beast story, the Disney thing, it's a great example of this, right? Because you basically have this girl, she's intelligent, but she's a little bit rebellious. She wants to kind of do her own thing, which is pretty typical of like the romance novel theme. She's not like super submissive at first. She's got like some edge to her. She needs to be broken. And so she comes across this beast, and he's like in the story, he's an actual beast, sort of like a, werewolf sort of thing. And he can, tear things apart, and, he's super strong and vicious and that sort of thing. And she's drawn to him, but she kind of can see the prince inside. She sees how he lives. She sees that he's lonely. She sees that he's got like a soft heart underneath all that monstrosity, and he's really just a kind soul. And she falls for him, and the kind of the story goes that like, only like her magic pussy is the thing that tames this monster, and and her sweetness, and that's really, going back to your comment there, Lou, wanting a nice guy in the player. That's it, right? He's this beast, but he's also a kind gentleman, but only to her. And that really is what kind of draws women. Now, should you care enough to say like, oh, I'm going to become this? No, because then that still means that you're following the woman, right? Where the girl says, I want this, and you go, okay, I'll make that. And that's not doing it. You know what I mean? Like, you should just develop yourself. And if you end up becoming that, and I do think that this is, more or less an epitome of masculine development, or just male development. When you're a man, yeah, you are formidable, right? But you're also elevated of mind, elevated of heart. So yeah, at the end of the day, if you do work on yourself, in this way, you will be a combination of that nice guy and that player. Okay. But different, it would be a gentleman and a monster, right? Because the nice guy is actually a disease, and so is the player. So yes, the gentleman and the monster. Okay. And yeah, because that fulfills what that does. The reason why that's so, magnetic or intoxicating to girls is because it speaks to their dual nature. And we've talked about this on other shows as well, where they've got the little girl and the whore. Okay. And, like that, and we can call it whatever. I'm just saying whore just for symbolism, but it's that part of their spirit that just wants to be owned, ravaged, used, like purposed out. You know what I'm saying? To be like useful in that way. Okay. Sexually. And there's something in them that like really, really wants that feeling. Okay. The gentleman can't do that. He doesn't have it within him, because his heart comes of the protector. Okay. He's the protector and the nurturer and the guide. All right. And so he sees her in a different way. His eyes only see the little girl. he sees the little girl inside and says, I see that sweetness. I see the vulnerability. I see how easily she can be broken or shattered or bent. And I'm going to cultivate that. I'm going to protect that. I want to nurture it. I want her to feel safe and loved. All right. And that's fine. Okay. But then that leaves out his monster, right? His destroyer, his conqueror. And that needs to express itself. Okay. Now, going back to what I was saying, there's tons of years and sources telling guys, this is bad. Do not express any of this. This is bad for society. Women don't want this. They do. Their core does. And if you bring out the destroyer, the conqueror, it's not going to speak to the little girl. Okay? It's going to make it recede. But it does speak to the whore. It absolutely speaks to her. They're speaking the same language. And so, but that's not going to come out of her, not fully, okay? Maybe in bits and pieces, maybe as cosplay, or maybe just kind of like a little bit, just to feel it a little, but that's not like embodying it, like really releasing oneself into the whore archetype, all right? It's not going to happen until he is fully immersed in his archetypes. Like both of them, the little girl and the whore. He has to be fully like enveloped and immersed into his archetypes first. Then hers are a reaction. Because the woman's always reacting off of you, always responding off of you, right? Women are the mirror. They're the mirror for your masculinity, however that's showing up. And so always keep that in mind, right? And I think that when you start like thinking this way, just kind of considering and looking at women in the sense that they are just reflective creatures, right? Like they're just like covered with chrome or something like that. Then that kind of puts you back into, I think, a proper mindset of just like how should I be showing up, right? In a way that I think is right for myself, according to my own principles, to my own codes. And this is, because if you don't do it that way, then you're going to say, well, how do I show up to make her soft? And that's like, I mean, yes, that dialogue is there, but you shouldn't be doing it for that. All right? Because they can sense that. They can sense the performative nature of it. And it's not good. It might be okay for a little while, but she'll know, like there'll be something kind of like itching or gnawing at her on the insides, knowing that like he's like might be showing up all right, but he's doing it so that he can procure something inside you. And that's not genuine. Like she just wants to freely react and fall into what you are. Okay? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Oh, found out today. Sorry, this is like completely different topic, but I, got my showy motorcycle helmet on, or hat on. And I found out that Suzuki is entering MotoGP again after a little hiatus. And right around the time when GP is dropping the 1000cc class, and I think they're dropping to like 800 or 850 or something like that. So that's pretty cool. But anyways, Guns, thank you for posting my links. Appreciate that. Yeah, if you want to know more about this stuff, if any of it's resonating, go to my website, thedominance.academy.com. Click that big button in the top right of the screen, and you'll see that you can book a call with me, and we can just talk about these things. Right? We can talk things through. It's of no charge, and we can move things along. Because you think that like you think it's simple, but it's not. And the funny thing is that like once you arrive, you realize that it actually is simple. When you first start out and you're looking at the whole like lay of the land and the things that I'm talking about that you need to work on, and you're like, fuck, like there's so much, right? But that's only because you're not in it. Once you like kind of like come into my neighborhood, so to speak, like you realize it's really quite simple. It's really not difficult to lead. It's not difficult to influence. It's not difficult, kind of wielding the woman's emotions and her mind, or just sitting back and not wielding them. It's all quite easy. The level of effort is much, much lower than what it was many years ago when I was dealing with women on their surface. And that's where like the harder stuff is, her social armor. Her social armor, her preferences, her, personality, all that stuff. That's where like the rigid surface level stuff is, okay? Where there is apparent definition, but it's just a shell. And that's where things are difficult, right? And guys are like trying to navigate himself, trying to sort out like any sort of appeal, or let alone like trying for a submission. And really, it's just a matter of learning to ignore that stuff and communicating to her core, and really not communicating much at all to that surface stuff. And the thing is that when you do start communicating directly to her core, you can then appeal to the things on the surface by choice. And it actually makes her feel more engaged, right? So like for instance, right, I'll like talk about my life a little bit. So when I was getting to know my submissive, I did engage with her on that level that I'm talking about, right? Engaging to her core, right? So that she could like experience a bit of me and help her understand that she can relax. And not through like telling her like, oh, you can relax around me, like actually just allowing her to feel it, okay? And then once she started kind of softening, right? Remember like what I was talking about, the different stages, yes? The different stages of their transformation. And what is that? What do we say here? So that the curiosity, the stage 2, the softening, okay, when she starts relaxing around you, becoming more feminine, expressive, open. It's at that point, when things get a little bit deeper, they start moving into trust. Then I was going back to the surface, right? And learning about, her upbringing, learning about her interests, the books that she likes to read, that like she was like into motorcycle riding as well, various things about like her developed persona. And then when you bounce back out to that, it becomes more, I guess, more meaningful, right? Versus starting there. And that's, I think that makes a huge difference. Maybe guys are wondering like, well, fuck, how do I do that? And, it just starts with yourself. It starts with you becoming, like I mentioned earlier, you becoming the guy that allows her to start shifting and starting to become more towards liquid, right? And so you can't like coax it out of her. I suppose you could manipulate her out of it, but then you'd have to maintain your manipulations in order to keep her in that state. And that will be exhausting. And that's no good, right? So that might work to like maybe like get her into bed, but that's not going to lead to the 4th stage ever. Like you can't manipulate her into surrender, right? You might be able to manipulate her curiosity. You could probably manipulate stage 2 of the softening, and perhaps a little bit of stage 3, a little bit of the trust, okay? But it won't go far. I don't think that like, unless you're like a master manipulator, I don't think that you can bring out trust, okay? And it will just go up to a certain point and then stop, because your instinct will be like, I'm sensing something is off here, okay? And and then you definitely won't get to stage 4, which is the surrender, and and the surrender is a beautiful thing. It's really probably, I think, like the best. It's the best expression a woman can possibly do, because you're seeing her as she is. So just remember, like, you can't like make it happen. You can just do what's best for yourself, and if it works out, it works out. And like, it shouldn't be a goal of yours. I know it's hard, like when you're younger and stuff like that. I'm an old fart, so I can just say, like, fuck, like, why worry about girls? Like, I remember being in my 20s and thinking that they like mattered more than they actually do. But so I know it's like easier for me to say that, but for the young guy, they're preoccupied. The young guys are really preoccupied. And I get it, because they're like, girls are like this uncharted territory. Like, you can kind of like read about them from afar, and the only real way to kind of like to understand them is to involve yourself with them, and that just seems so difficult. It seems so difficult to involve yourself in like a in a meaningful way, and it seems to be getting harder and harder as like this dating landscape changes. It only seems like it's getting harder because, like, as I said, your attention and your awareness is only on what's happening on the surface, the changes that are happening in culture. Oh, the game's changed. The game never changes. It never changes. I guess never say never, but it hasn't changed. It has not changed since we crawled out of caves. Girls still, and I think always will, respond to a man's core. And that's just the end of it. And a man, his core will only really respond to a woman's core. And the way to really kind of start that line, okay, between the two, is to start like ignoring women as you see them now. Like, ignoring what comes out of their mouths. Absolutely. Like, really, there should be only a couple of women that you really like pay attention to in that regard, right? Maybe your mother, if you've got a good relationship with her, grandmother, something like that, and the woman who has earned your respect. Then that's it, or maybe like and that could be a teacher or the woman who's like under you. Like, I've had some like really great female teachers when I was a kid, coming up to like middle school and high school. I had some really great teachers. Like, if it wasn't for my art teacher, Mrs. Lurcher, I would definitely not have taken the art career that I did. It was because of her that I really got to understand art from a different lens. And so people like that, right, where you can really respect them. And of course, the woman who has earned your respect and she's under you, right? She's abiding by your leadership. So then that's about it. Like, everybody else is like an NPC, and their voices should sound more or less like Charlie Brown's teacher. That wah 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 wah. Like, that's it. And then the other way to start this line between the cores is to not be so easily caught up in the appearance of women, right? So forget about rating them, you know, oh, she's a 9, she's an 8. No, like forget all that. Really, come on, just lie down. Louis, lie down. So, you know, or getting caught up in like, oh, like, you know, oh, she, like, oh, look at her ass, look at her tits, oh, she's so pretty, like this, that, like getting like moved by a woman's beauty, like that has to stop also. It really does. And I mean, that's not to say like you don't recognize or appreciate, but you don't get moved, right? Like you don't like feel anything in your loins or your emotions or anything like that, or your lust, right? It's just recognizing, you know, like aesthetics, right? And that's as far as you should take it. And so once you start kind of like shifting that that current relationship with the feminine, you know, the sexual objectification and being moved by it, and then also heeding the things that they say, that kind of shifts you away from that surface, the you know, the harder surface of things where the detail is and all that, and you can then start communicating to the core underneath that, the softer center. Okay. And you might not know what you're doing at first, but that's better than what you've been doing, you know, which is just operating on the surface. It doesn't do anything for anybody. It doesn't do anything for the girl. It doesn't do anything for the guy. It's just crap. You know, it's like crackers made out of plastic, you know. It just doesn't do anything. So that should be enough to start you out with, you know, like at the very least, you know, it is that beauty thing. Change your algorithms. You know, I have my guys do this, like the stuff that comes up on YouTube, like hit the not interested. Like one of my guys, like he's really working hard and like shifting what comes into his mind. He said he exhausted the YouTube option. Like apparently if you hit not interested enough, eventually the button will go gray and you can't do it anymore. And he did that. So and so yeah, you just do that, and then only make specific searches, like over and over and over, so that only certain things come up. And you do the same thing with your Instagram discover page. You know, don't click on anything that you shouldn't be. Don't hover, like even when it's in a small picture in the grid, don't even stop. Just go right past things that you shouldn't be seeing, that you shouldn't be ingesting. Okay. And then only go on to things that you think you should, or do specific searches for things that you should, that you want to change things to. Okay. You know, so like I've got cats, motorcycles, weird AI art, and busty anime chicks. Right. And that's about it. I don't have like humans, like human attractive girls. I've got like anime attractive girls. And that's about it. And that's mostly my submissive's fault, because she's like sending me this stuff all the time. You know, because she likes looking at them. And she's like, Daddy, look at this. Look at these tits. I'm like, yes, it's a very cute outfit. I can get this too. It's like, okay. All right. Yeah, and when they get to that stage 4, like the devotion and the yes, with the devotion level, the surrender, like don't think that annoyance with girls goes away. It doesn't go away. They remain annoying. It's just a different annoying. Okay, it's not like frustrating annoying. You know, we just want to grab them and shake them. It's different, but they're still annoying. So don't ever think that you're free. I heard a funny joke recently. The guy was like, he's like, hey, so do you know why women and children are evacuated first in an emergency. And the guy's like, no, why? He said, because it allows us guys to think of a proper plan. Like, oh, that's pretty good. Pretty good way to put it. Yeah. So we have the quiet to come up with a solution to the emergency. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, like it's basically like every podcast here that I'm doing, it just always keeps circling back, circle back, circle back, circle back. Like it always comes down to what you're doing. You know, my guys, you know, my newer dudes, when they kind of come around to this realization, they're like, oh shit, like, yeah, it's me. I'm like, yep, it's you. Like there's really no workaround. There really isn't, you know? And that's when you come to that realization, when you really start developing the ability to be honest with yourself and not feel bad about it or guilty or upset or anything like that. You just kind of get used to like looking at things just as they are, okay, without judgment. And that's a habit in and of itself, is to just look at how you are and not feel bad, not judge, you know, not be critical or anything like that. And this is what really allows you to kind of like face things straight on and just sort out like how to deal with it. And it can be difficult, you know, but that's why it's helpful to have a guide, right? Because, you know, my guys, they do get confused at those stages, those early stages, you know, because that's when you start questioning, like, well, who the fuck am I? You know, once you start realizing that so much of your behavior is conditioned behavior, so much of your identity is conditioned identity. And then you start, with me, like kind of peeling these things away, and you get to this point where you're like, well, fuck, like, who the hell am I? I don't even know who I am. And I'm like, yes, now you've stepped foot on the path for the first time in your life. You're actually taking a real, authentic step for the first time since you've been born. Well, actually, since you've been conditioned. Let me say that. Because the baby steps are quite authentic. But, you know, and they're just like, fuck, you know. But that's the best place to be. Like, the best place to be is when you're in a state of I don't know. It's the most intellectually honest position you could possibly be in. Right? Until you get to the point where you start creating the no, right? Creating the no so that you can become more settled in that, okay? But until then, what you know is just a series of narratives, conditions, beliefs, behaviors, habits that you really didn't choose. You didn't make the conscious choice of saying, this is how I'm writing the constitution of me, of my nation, right? And the thing is, though, is that you can't write it until you've cleared the room. You know, it's like you can't like redecorate your home until you've gotten rid of the old furniture and shit, right? You can't bring in new furniture at the same time. It's just going to be a huge clusterfuck, okay? So you got to clear out what you don't need, and then you can bring in the stuff that you want, you know? And it's a process, you know? It's certainly a process. The All-Star Lifestyle. Salute. Sorry to interrupt your stream. Don't apologize. I'd like to reach out to you in regard to being a guest on my show. Yeah, sure, man. Contact me on Instagram, thedominance.academy, and we can chat from there. You know, or if you're on Telegram, my handle is MrJustin_X. And you can contact me there as well. But yeah, I'd be happy to chat. But the you know, it's just a weird experience, you know. But you know, I tell my guys that they're while they're developing, they're actually making themselves into a coach, right? Because like leadership and coaching and mentoring, it's all kind of like loosely related. Okay. So like while I'm mentoring them, they're learning how to be a mentor, because guess what? Girls have the same shit. Girls have the same, well, not the same conditioning, but they too are conditioned. They too have their prescription perceptions, beliefs, habits, okay, expectations, all that stuff. And it's just as insidious as the stuff that guys get, right? It's just different, right? It's from a different neighborhood. But so once you learn the steps and the mechanisms, the pathways, like within yourself, to then come to your authenticity, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. You understand like the layers of difficulty, the layers of discomfort sometimes, and then the layers of clarity, and then the layers of building from that clarity. You then take her through that. So it actually doesn't end in stage 4, okay? The stage 4 surrender, that's actually the beginning of the actual stage 1, right? Like it's kind of like when I was telling you guys about when I was in karate. It was my first martial art that I studied. I started when I was 11 years old. And I had gone through all the belts and stuff like that. And you always know when the teacher's going to promote somebody, because in his gi, he's like got this bulge, And so he like, you're all lined up, shoulder to shoulder, and he stops in front of me, and he like motions for me to step forward. And I'm like, holy shit, am I getting a stripe or am I getting my black belt? And if you're getting a stripe, he would reach up to his collar and he'd grab like a piece of electrical tape or black sports tape to then wrap around your belt. But he reached deep inside, and I was like, holy shit, I'm getting like a promotion. And he pulls out my black belt and he gives me the black belt, and he takes off my brown belt. He ties the black belt on. He shakes my hand, we bow, and he says, now your work begins. And like it hit me like a ton of bricks, that I was all that time, I was preparing to begin. All those years of training, like fucking, I think sometimes 7 days a week, mostly 6, every single day, training for like between 4 and 6 hours a day. And then all that was just in preparation for stage 1. And it's the same thing here with the submission, the stages of submission: curiosity, softening, trust, and surrender. Okay. The curiosity, softening, and trust, those are just the prequels, or like the prerequisites of the surrender. And the surrender is actually the prerequisite for stage 1, which is guidance, leadership, and mentorship. Okay. Because all that stuff that you learned, like as, one of my students, or if you learn the same things with another teacher, all those like the stages, the layers, the development, removal, clarity, growth, and all that stuff, and then rewriting what you believe should be there, that's the same sort of stuff that will happen after her surrender, because now she's also going to be wondering, or you're going to be leading her to wonder, who am I? Are you just your family? Are you just your culture? Are you just the things that your mother told you, or your father told you, or that school tells you, or your religion tells you? Was any of that a choice of yours? Or did you just absorb it since you were a little girl? And now you just believe this to be my persona. Okay. And you say, well, what actually works for you? Is there any of that that's actually holding her back? Okay. And so we start looking, we start just gently questioning over time. It's not like this like, bolt of lightning sort of thing. Okay. Just like it isn't for yourself. Okay. It's a slow, like melting away or slow peeling away of certain things. And some things are genuinely okay to just keep there. And some things you're like, this doesn't resonate with me. And now that I'm seeing it, it never resonated with me. I just never had the courage to really look and really accept the fact that I think this is bullshit, And And it's different because the girl, because of the submissive core, the liquid nature of it, it requires the container for them to kind of let go of certain things, both with some things that they learned, or with how they see themselves as like identity. So, if they're kind of releasing some things and they're letting go into the liquid state, it's required that you have a solid container. And so it's different for the guy, right? Because his masculine core, you develop the structure, you develop your container to also contain yourself. People will call this your program. I call it my CPRs, like the codes, principles, and rules. So, and other guys, sometimes if they're religious, they'll use like the tenets of their religion to kind of like create that container for them, that structure. But the feminine doesn't have that. And that's why it should come from us. So you got to set yourself up such that they can chill out. They can start relaxing, loosening, letting go of things. Okay. And, you'd be surprised that some of them are like gripping like the blade of a knife, and their hand is bleeding. Some of my guys, I've got my Spyderco right here. If you guys are looking for, like, I'm not endorsed by them, but if you're looking for amazing knives, the company Spyderco makes really great knives. This is a great blade, and it doesn't extend past my hand, see? So it's legal. Actually, it's not legal because it's locking, but by length it's legal. But like some people, they're like gripping the blade like so super hard, and it's like things that are making them suffer, beliefs that they're holding on to, okay? Perceptions that they're holding on to, feelings that they're holding on to, memories they're holding on to, pain, traumas, and they're just holding on to it like white knuckled, all right? And I'm like, with some of my guys, I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, look at this objectively. Who are you trying to harm here with that rage, with that anger? The only person you're harming is yourself. Look at your hand, it's bleeding because you're just gripping the fuck out of that blade. Let go. And the thing is that, when you really think about it, there's no other choice than to let go. Like if I have a blade stuck in my hand, okay, there's no tactic. Like at the end of the day, I could come up with all sorts of like various angles, but at the end of the day, I need to start doing this. That's it. You have to just let go of some stuff. And that's really how your containment actually starts forming. And then she'll be able to do her thing. And everything has become beautiful. But just know it starts with you. It all starts with you and dealing with your bullshit. Okay? Well, I think I've exhausted this topic, and I'm really happy that we've gotten through it in just over an hour. And I want to try to shorten these things up so we're not just rambling for hours. I know you youngins have no fucking attention span. So I'm going to try to keep these to like an hour and a half. So I think that's it. I think this, we've kind of covered what we needed to cover here this evening. Okay. Again, if you have any questions about anything, find me on Instagram, thedominance.academy, and we can have a chat. Go to the website, thedominance.academy.com, and book yourself a free consultation. Otherwise, look out for the various things that I've got going on there. There's some PDF ebooks on how to be a dominant lover. I have not gotten one bad review from it yet, aside from a few typos that my friend Dylan the Islander pointed out. So that was pretty cool. And there's free PDFs on there, and then also go to the tutorials where I've got one-off lessons with a very low barrier of entry as far as the cost goes, and grab up whatever resonates with you, or grab them all. Okay, You'll be spending like, far less than $50 if you can get all of them that are right there right now. I'll be putting up new ones every week, right? So every week you'll have one or more new tutorial in there, and it's going to be spanning a wide range of information, from really beginner stuff about, say like identity, nice guy syndrome, how to become more grounded, through the intermediate stages, and then all the way through advanced stages of, creativity and influence and things like that. So I wish there was a way where I could make like something with the buying, like you couldn't get to the stage 3 until you had like stage 2 and things like that, because I know that like the stage 3 stuff can be really interesting, but none of it will actually work until you've done the earlier things, right? But getting new information, even if you're not ready to use it, isn't always bad. Yes. Well, thank you, the All-Star Lifestyle. But yeah, hit me up on IG, and we'll take it from there. Appreciate you asking. Yes, little one. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's it. That's it for now, and we're gonna pull this to a close. Thank you so much for joining me here on this live. I appreciate you and your inputs. Please, as we move along, submit your questions while we're in the middle of the show. So I'm not answering them via email or on Instagram. It's much easier and more fruitful for everybody if you present your questions during the show. Everyone can learn. And thank you for those of you who are watching on the replay. I appreciate you as well. All right, until next time, take it easy.